I'm a film student here at SVA, third year currently. And welcome to SVA Unscripted. This is the inaugural event. I hope I said that right. I always mess up that word when I say it. Tonight we have Bob Giraldi and Marshall Arisman here. And here at SVA Unscripted, what we're going to do is we sit down with a small group of students, or as big as the group of students will get, and we talk intimately about why we're here, why we do what we do, what got the faculty here where they are tonight at this point. And I think we're going to open tonight with a little intro video that we have featuring the work, the lifetime work up to this point of Bob and Marshall.
Every night, every director goes home, lays in bed, thinks about what I got, didn't get, should have gotten, and yet what could be magical.
First of all, we never got along. We always argued with each other. The 1970s. He was a young art director. We had done 4 commercials.
I don't mind doing your income taxes. The only time your mother and me get to see you.
They won at Cannes.
My cousin Leo is innocent.
It really established Bob. And you have to remember, the whole world was changing, and Bob was right in the middle.
He did comedy. It changed the world of selling beer.
You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on. Oh, I must be in the front.
Bob always was entertaining. Bob could make people talk. He was one of those directors that told a story.
What on earth are you crying for?
Have you seen our long-distance film?
He was always a guy where something was going on. Something was always cooking.
He's willing to give people chances, and people give it back to him.
Real contribution has been to get people to think very seriously here about other than print media.
The students learn virtually everything, and in 1 year, they have to produce this film. And I still can't figure out how Bob did this. In fact, no one can.
You'll learn more if you do it.
His mind works very fast because he knows what he wants.
I was struck by how Bob had this huge New York heart.
I love New York because it's artistic.
I love New York because it's funny.
Create together. I think it's a wonderful way to stay in love.
Oh! The food has never, for me, been shown in a film like that before. Bob knew not only the lingo, but also how to capture the soul and the spirit of a chef.
I worked my whole life to become a chef.
In my mind, he's just such a natural and complete director. There's no other job he should have.
My friend is dead! 25 years. No.
He was tough on actors when they didn't do their job and when they didn't remember their lines.
Did you yell at the talent?
Yes.
Who'd you yell at?
Everybody.
He has a gentle soul behind that strong and straight personality he has.
They were dancing on tabletops. They were dancing in the kitchen.
Am I my resume?
He's a superb director when it comes to celebrity talent.
He fully understood what his power was, to transfer into film or video a human emotion that could be transferred to the audience.
Good night. Good night, Daddy. Sweet dreams.
But he also has a considerable ego of his own. He can handle the major egos of stars.
In my case, in Michael's case, and a few other artists he did, he connects with the writer. When you get someone that actually takes your baby and turns it into a motion picture.
Not only superb craftsmanship and superb direction, but he had a true understanding of advertising, and he brought that knowledge along with his artistry, better than any TV director that ever lived. And all of a sudden, there's a culture changer.
Bob and Michael Peters and Michael Jackson created a video that allowed men, for the first time in America, to dance.
As soon as he does one piece, his mind is already on to something else, whether it's a restaurant or it's a film.
Yeah, I do remember every week or so, my room would have a different arrangement.
I don't think it changed him, because when I see him and we all get together, he's still just Dad.
without further ado, let's bring in Marshall Arisman and Bob Giraldi. So that was some wonderful piece of work we got to see there. So the title of this specific night was "A Farmer and a Jock Walk into an Art School." I think that'd be a fitting place to start. Yeah?
A farmer and a jock walk into an art school. That's the beginning of a joke.
So who's the farmer and who's the jock?
Guess.
The farmer, the jock.
So growing up, what was it like in those two different, where'd you guys grow up?
Jamestown, New York, a small town, upstate.
Patterson, New Jersey, a badass town with lots of Goombas. Do you know what Goombas are? No, you don't know what a Goomba is? It's a Guido. We call them Goombas. There for the grace of God, I go with gun, brown suit, leisure suit and shit, you know. Thank God. Thank God I met Marshall.
There you go.
So in high school, growing up, what were some of your hobbies? What would you do? Because usually hobbies kind of lead you into what you eventually end up doing.
Yeah, I did nothing but play the saxophone.
You played the saxophone?
Right.
And that was yeah, music is an art, of course. So, and you played football or baseball?
I did. Just not well, but no, I don't. Bob has a competitive heart. I mean, I don't. I think I played football because, I don't know, to be popular, you played football, right? I mean, I don't know, right? I wasn't very good.
So what were some of you guys left high school with, all these things in mind? You were a farmer, he was a jock, you go to college. How did you know what you wanted to do in college?
Well, you have to understand that meeting Bob, you begin to talk with your hands, whether you like it or not. And after 57 years, I find myself talking with my hands, right? Hey, come here. Come here. Bob has the distinction of being the only art student to get an athletic scholarship to Pratt Institute.
Pratt has
I mean, he was on his way to be a major league catcher.
Some
so
distinction.
He played basketball and baseball. Right?
Basketball and baseball. I had to play, or else I had to pay. Play or pay. And I chose to play. I had a scholarship. I got turned down at Cooper Union. Screw them. I got turned down at RISD, and I didn't even try for Pratt. At that time, in the early 60s, late 50s, was the art school of choice for most people. So I took a scholarship to play baseball and basketball at Wagner College in Staten Island, and I was on my way. And one day I got a call from some dude that set me up at Pratt, and he said, I see at Wagner, and he said, I see your aptitude for art is really kind of interesting here and pretty good. I'd love to have you as a jock at Wagner, but, you really should think about another direction. And my brother just so happened to take a job at Pratt Institute, where they're trying to do something about like Michelangelo, strong arm and strong body, strong mind, all of that kind of stuff. And they're going to start giving out scholarships, 2 of them, and not for long. So maybe you'd like to try for one of those. And my life changed.
And so both of you ended up at Pratt as roommates?
No.
No,
that came
later.
That came later
Detroit.
when we were adults.
So where are we now? This is your first year at Pratt?
In the first year of the dormitories at Pratt Institute on Ryerson and DeKalb. And equally, I felt very much at home. I don't know about Marshall, but Pratt was Brooklyn was very much like Patterson. It was just Goomba. It was rough and tumble with knives and guns and girls and stuff. It was always exciting.
Yeah, well.
So what was that first year like when you first met each other?
I can't remember. We fell in love. I mean, we were.
Oh, I get it.
We were friends. I mean, he was from upstate New York. I was from Jersey. he was a marvelous, marvelous artist and raconteur and could, you know, and tell stories and spin yarns, play a mean saxophone. Was really one of the really cool guys that I enjoyed being around. I don't like a lot of people, so I kind of like go my own way. I usually have a woman that's just, I know I've always had a mate, and then I met Marshall, and then so it sort of changed a bit.
So would you guys, what were your majors initially in Pratt?
It was called advertising graphics or something, was it?
It was all I remember was a foundation year. All I remember, I had to go play. I had to stuff my jock and my socks in my duffel bag, and everybody thought I was walking around with paints and brushes and shit. But I was walking around with that, you know, my sports stuff. And every single day, I don't know if anybody here does that or knows anything about that, but we jocks don't get credit for working as hard as we do. Every single day after school, I couldn't go home and do my work. I had to go play. I had to go run up and down that goddamn court all day long, all night long, until the coach said, okay, that's it, go home. It's now 9 o'clock. I'm going to go home, fatigued, and sit down and start doing my art, you know. It didn't compute. It didn't, you know.
So Marshall, what were you doing while he was out and about athletically?
I had never been around people that were serious about art before. I mean, and suddenly I'm thrown into Pratt, and half my class were Korean vets, right? They were like 32 years old. They were bald.
G.I. Bill.
Yeah, G.I. Bill.
And how old were you?
17.
Right out of high school.
Right. And so suddenly I'd never seen a nude model before. Right? In my memory, I have a clear memory of my first drawing class. And I was initially excited. I thought, my God, it's going to be a nude woman up here, right? I mean, and then I remember scratching out this horrible drawing, and I heard next to me what sounded like Conte crayon flying on paper, right? It was like, whoosh, whoosh. And I looked over, and there was somebody drawing like Michelangelo. I mean, it was painful. I mean, I think I got C's and D's my first year. And then I began to get it in terms of how to do it and whatever. And I made this vow to myself, which was really stupid, that I would end up with straight A's. And I remember getting straight A's, thinking, well, that was dumb. But I think, I don't know, we wanted to use the art, no? I mean, isn't that why we would do? I mean, we wanted to get out of Pratt and get a job. And I think Bob was clearer than I was about where this was going. I thought, well, yeah, okay, graphic design, I stole from Paul Rand and whatever. But we both ended up with portfolios that got us hired in Detroit.
And that was a different era, obviously. So so coming out of college into a job market, what was that like?
Well, it's a very strange. I mean, everybody's got a different story about college. My story of Pratt was that I hated the competition. I just hated it, and I was a competitive guy, and I knew how to play ball. And we had, you laugh, but we had a very, very fine baseball and basketball team. Went to the finals of the NAIA, a small college champion. I mean, they put together some nice athletes, and we had this nice club, and so it was very competitive. But when I went to school, in class in the morning, I hated it. I hated going to class, and you four were talking about the architectonic you did, and you three had something else going. And I had to stand, I was by myself, or I was with Marshall, or how was your thing? How's your look? You know, and we had to compete. I had never competed in school before like that. And I don't know if your class does that, but to this day, I hate kind of competition, and I keep it away from my class. I'm in a film, program, and I make sure that it's not one film better than the other. It's not one film competing with another. Your film is your film. Your film is your film. We can both talk about it, but we don't compare it ever. And that's how that's the way I lived at Pratt and got by on my bouncing that ball and hitting that, swinging that bat. And then one day we had to choose, where do we go to get a job? And at the same time, and I'm not sure remember why or how, they showed up and said, you know, there's a job waiting for some of you designers, artists in Detroit at the Maholi-Negi, wrong, at the Mies van der Rohe, was it? Saarinen, Eros Saarinen Center in Michigan, which is a spectacular, beautiful center, but they design cars. And something that Marshall and I looked at each other and said, but for me, it was a way out of New Jersey. It was a way out of New York. It was a place to go. In the Midwest, I've never been in my life. And I wanted to go someplace and try something and get a job and get paid. I'll never forget my mother dropping me off at Saarinen's beautiful, you know, glass, you know, menagerie. There it was, you know, all its glory. And she cried and screamed, "My God, my son has made it. Your life is over. You're finished. You've arrived." And, you know, okay, Ma, go back to Patterson. Everything will be all right. It was a different time. Remember, you know, you cannot compare the time today. They're just not comparable.
And you went with him.
Yeah, we rented a house together with two other guys. It was a great first job. I mean, I spent a month doing Christmas cards for the racing team. Right? And my assignment was any size you want, any color, embossing, whatever you want to do. So I did it, and my boss said, okay, on the bottom you got to say, "Happy birthday, Billy," "Happy birthday, Jimmy," "Happy birthday, Frank." There are 3 Corvettes in the garage. Go down and put a card in the seat of each one. They were presents for the racing team. We never really did any hard-ass advertising.
We didn't do anything.
I mean, we did.
Detroit was, you know what my favorite memory of Detroit was? And you probably don't know who this is, but sitting with a beautiful woman at the Rooster Tail, which is a great club, watching Bobby Darin and listening to Bobby Darin sing "Mac the Knife." Now, do we know who Bobby Darin is? Yeah. Some do. The older, you can tell your age. A great pop singer of the time in the Frank Sinatra genre. And that was my greatest memory of Detroit. It's not a place you want to go and be creative.
No, and GM had an interesting system. The parking lot furthest away from the building made the least amount of money. All the cars were color-coded. You remember right? So according to salary, you got a sticker that went in your windshield of your car. And if you made the least amount of money, you parked in the parking lot furthest away. The problem with that sticker was everybody in Detroit knew what it meant. So when we went out in our car,
everyone would see
we
that
got
sticker.
treated differently than when we went out with our boss, right? Suddenly everybody, whatever. We would have gotten fired eventually. I mean, I left and went to Europe. Bob left and went to an agency. We didn't belong there. I have memories of, I had a vest that had a bright yellow back on it. Why this is important. And every day in the tech center, they would roll out these incredible food carts. And I mean, it was an amazing place. And one of the guys that worked there came up to me every day and said, "You know something, you're not regulation, but you are a sharp mother." And I thought, we're going to get fired.
You know, for you people, though, so we can turn this around a little bit and be what makes more sense or some sense to you. You know, I'm not sure I know what you're thinking. These are grad students, so that's a whole...
Most of them.
Most of them.
Almost
so
all.
It's a whole different... You've gone through college. You pretty much know what you want. I knew very, very early that I was a commercial guy. I liked commercial things as opposed to non-commercial things. And we would argue about that all the time. At Pratt, that's all you would argue. The theory of art and fine art versus the business of making commercials or making art to make money. And I knew I was on the side of art to make money. And I made my art, I've made my videos, I've made whatever I've made, my movies, I've made what I've made, and I've made my money. And and now I'm finally in vogue at this, you know, at this late age. Everybody now wants to be, you know, in commercials because it's very hip. I went through a long time in school and after when commercials weren't very hip at all. And we had, you know, we endured. So it's really a lot about knowing early what you want. And I pity those people that get out and really, not pity because you could get out and not know anything and find some space and place for you that's just marvelous. But for me, the kind of personality I am, I had to know.
And,
yeah, good point.
And neither of you really, you're not working the field that you intended to work on initially. I mean, you were in advertising, but you never, did you think it would go into film?
Well, I was going to be a catcher. I was on my way to the Chicago. I was on my way to the Chicago Cubs organization and got waylaid by a beautiful woman again. We can talk a lot about that. So I'm Italian, so that was like pasta and women. They jockeyed for the most important part of my life, and I got waylaid and whatever. And then one day I woke up and I realized that I wasn't going to be that catcher, and I better find something else to do with my life. And I was influenced by advertising. I was influenced by an ad. There are two things that influenced me, strangely enough. There was an ad that ran a long time ago. It was a black page, full black page. And at the bottom there's a white strip. And it had typography that said, this is how a blue sky, green grass, and purple violets looks to a blind person. And it was for the Better Vision Institute. And it was so simple, but so elegant and so striking that for the first time in my life, I realized that I, Bob Giraldi, liked the marriage of words and visuals. That really knocked me out. Then I got on the subway a couple days later, and there was a famous, to this day famous, poster that said, I quit school when I was 16, and it was for staying in school. And it's just that simplicity with words and images that said, Bob, this is the business that you want to be in. And that's the story of why I chose the business of advertising.
You have some of that, Ed?
Yeah, and we're different people. Detroit taught me I didn't like to work with people. And so it threw me into total confusion. It was, I don't think we got paid really well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and my parents, like Bob's parents, right, felt like it was all worth it. You know, you've got this great job, you'll have it for life. And so when I quit 3 months later, not 3 years later, 3 months later, I quit out of pain. I mean, I couldn't stand it. And then my leg went numb and I had to drag my leg to work. I found that my body tells me stuff that I already know, which is, you hate this place. I mean, so I floated for a year and got into illustration because it's something I could do alone and sit in a room and not have people bother me. And Bob, on the other hand, would produce anything. He always did. Does that make sense? It's not about what it's in him to do this, and it's in him to translate this emotion into film. And it was in me to go inside, whatever that means, right?
And then we came together here at the School of Visual Arts, which is a completely different school, some 30 some years ago, which was no graduate departments, and so you're of a
no degree.
No degree. You're of a new generation, and it's very exciting. I mean, it's a really exciting place. I wish I'd get my daughter to go to school here, but I can't. I can't convince her.
So looking back, what was one of the first jobs that you had that was in the industry that you ended up in that really made you like take a step back and say, wow, this is where I am?
I've always been very lucky. Timing and Bob have always been friends. I got lucky with timing, And I was around when the craft of print advertising shifted over and television came in. Way, 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 way. You don't even watch television this generation. But it was when television commercials became popular. And I was there at the beginning, and I just made some television commercials that all of a sudden caught on. And in our industry, in our business, as you're going to find out in your business, if you do something that catches on, it'll carry you for quite a while. I mean, there's got to be reinvention, obviously. You can't stay, rest on your laurels. But if you do something that becomes somewhat high profile, it's flavor of the month, as Hollywood calls it, you'll be okay for a while. And that happened to me, and it happened to me, and it happened to me. And then I caught the videos, and I met Michael, and and we went, and so life with me has always been one ball of luck.
You have to tell a story about Michael's hair catching on fire.
Do you know about that? Were you raised in that? I just wrote about that the other day for something I'm doing, and I recollected the hate mail that I've gotten from people telling me that I was the reason why he's dead, because I'm the one that I did put his hair on fire. I was the director of the Pepsi commercial that his hair went on fire, and which then sent him to the hospital, which then sent him on his way to painkillers and the addiction, which most people feel killed him eventually. I see it another way. I'm not going to take responsibility for the poor man's death, but I was there the day we were shooting a Pepsi commercial, which Michael just didn't want to be there, and I didn't want to be there. I hated the agency. It's an agency called BBD&O on Madison Avenue. Pepsi was the client. Michael and the brothers, his brothers, were all wearing shades because they went through this time when they didn't want to, they were embarrassed about being in a commercial, although he was getting $15 million. They were embarrassed in being in the commercial, so they wore shades to kind of separate them from anybody. And I had to ask them to take their shades off, and Michael and I were battling, and he always said to me, I used the F word too much and whatever, because we were definitely different people. But he had just, in those days when we took a break, Michael would sit in a room like this, and he would have a lot of handlers, obviously, and a lot of hangers-on, and a lot of big posse. I would have my room, director gets a room and whatever, and his brothers would hang because it was the commercial with the brothers to Jackson 5. And he was always around young kids, as you know, and everybody has their mindset about what he was doing with those young kids, but there's always kids around. And we never thought anything about it because the kids always had mothers and fathers and nannies there. So there was no hanky-panky, as he's been accused of many years later. So they were all there, and all of a sudden we got the call to go on up. We were going to do a few more takes of Michael in that commercial coming downstairs with an explosion behind him and then starting to break into a dance. And all of a sudden, we heard a scream, a blood-curdling scream, coming from the bathroom. And everybody looked, and Michael was unaccounted for. So obviously, Michael was screaming, and he was in the bathroom. So we ran, everybody, I mean, this is a gazillion-dollar guy. Everybody runs to the bathroom, and there he is, standing over the toilet, which has got his fresh wee-wee in it. Michael's wee-wee, could have been worth a fortune. And his glove, that famous white glove, sequined glove, was in the toilet. He can't go on without his glove. And it's in the toilet, and we all look at each other, he just, get the glove, get my glove, and he's screaming. And everybody looks at everybody else if they say, all right, get the glove. But nobody's moving to pick up that glove from Michael's semen, or pig. So, very smart prop guy shows up with a hanger, gets it up, he takes it out. I have a great photo of it. It's dripping. Dripping with Michael's wee-wee. He puts it on the table, said, let's let it dry. Come on, you're on, let's go. and everybody starts to get dressed, and we go upstairs. And the agency comes to me and says, you know, Bob, we're only going to do a few more takes. We really would like to have more behind him, more pyrotechnics, bigger explosion. And he was up, well, I don't know, 15 feet on stairs. Come on down, dance, it was beautiful. Nobody danced like Michael. And he, I guess if I remember right, he sang a Pepsi song to the Pepsi lyrics to the tune of Billie Jean, which I always felt was the best song he's ever done. Okay, I go to the pyrotechnics, who was a 100-year-old union guy, and say, can we get a little more? And, oh, okay, we can try and get a little more, right? And the fireman, who now has gone on television many times and claimed that he heard the director ask for more, his job was there to make sure that we didn't do more without him being aware of it, because that's what firemen are hired for, to make sure you don't blow the goddamn place up. So he should have, but he didn't. Nobody told Michael what to do. When Michael wanted more, it was more. And you can understand, you know, high-profile people like that. Anyway, he goes up there, and I go backstage and get behind my 5 monitors. I have 5 video, in those days, videotape monitors, because there's 5 cameras, all on Michael. And in the audience is about 1,000 young people that we got from radio ads in Los Angeles. Pantages Theater, if anybody knows LA, the Pantages Theater, downtown, 1,000 kids screaming, Michael at the top of the stairs is going to appear and come on down. And all of a sudden, I'm back there and I say, okay, here we go. To the AD, yell action, action. And the music starts, the pyrotechnics start. And I look in there and I say, and I didn't mean this to be, I'll tell you exactly my quote, because it's funny, it's in the, you know, I said, that boy is out of sync. That boy is never out of sync. What he was doing, and I didn't call him boy because it was Michael or because he was black or because he was young. It came into my head that I saw him doing this. He was trying to take off the jacket from his body because the pyrotechnics went, the gel in his hair got right in the center of his hair, and it went down the back of his neck. And he was trying to get that goddamn jacket, you know, that jacket off of him. He comes down the stairs, totally out of sync, gyrating and screaming and whatever, and I'm back there watching, and everybody is watching. Nobody knows what to do. The audience finally stops screaming and watches him. In the last 2 steps, he comes down, he does a pirouette that only Michael Jackson can do, and goes down like a shot, dead. The image was him lying there with a little bit of smoke coming up from the middle of his head like a rotisserie. That's all I remember looking at. The pain must have been beyond belief. Everybody runs to Michael. Everybody. Cops, ambulance people, whatever it was, anybody, producers, everybody runs to this on stage and surrounds Michael. Nobody really quite sure what to do. You know, they begin to lift him up to comfort him a little bit. He's out. This is coming up. And all of a sudden, in my face is his bodyguard, some punk named Nico Brando. You know who Marlon Brando was? Brando's oldest son, who was a drug addict. He was in my face. You did that on purpose. From start swinging at each other. It was awful. Everybody was crazy, pointing fingers, because everybody there knew pretty soon they would have to be accounted for. Somebody was going to burn. Oh, you know, sorry. Police come. Everybody is on top of everybody else. Ambulance comes. Long story short, at the end of this whole thing, we know that it's going to be okay, or we know that Michael's going to live, because they put him on the stretcher and they take him away, and somehow he gets the pee-stained glove on his hand and raises it up as he's being led to the ambulance and goes like this. All right? I start crying. And the guy next to me turned to me and said, "Your career is over." I've never told that story in detail quite like that. I've been, actually, I was bound not to say it by the law for for the lawsuit that they've all filed. But I had to tell you that story. So that is the truth of that story. Sorry. We got a million of those stories.
So where'd you go from there?
I went home and I sat in my apartment in Los Angeles on Rexford Drive, and I sat there and I cried, and I looked at the television, and on the television came a news flash that said that Michael Jackson had just been very badly burned in an accident shooting a Pepsi commercial, and the director should be held accountable, and we're way out of control with directors like that, because a week before, if you look at your history, a week before, John Landis filmed an episode of I forget the program, but killed a very big star, Chuck. Nobody helps me. I'm too young to help me with my history. And an Asian child, Chuck, somebody, he was a star, had an Asian child. They were running across a rice paddy. He was filming Twilight Zone, exactly right. It was Twilight Zone. The helicopter got out of control and came low, and the blades absolutely obliterated both of them. And that was because he wanted more. And they were claiming that Giraldi wanted more. And everybody in our directors want more because we're greedy and we're whatever the hell we are. And I sat there and I cried alone, and the phone rings, and I pick up the phone, and you could guess forever and ever and ever, it was Lionel Richie's wife, named Barbara at that time. They're divorced now. And she said, I heard what happened, Bob. I'm really sorry, that's too bad, but let me tell you something. That boy don't put water in his hair. That boy puts gel in his hair. And I couldn't help but think that the competition and the hatred goes so deep that she wanted to make sure that I would tell the police that, because really what happened was, it was him putting a lot of gel in his hair. That shit's inflammable, or flammable. It put a spark by it, it's gonna, so don't put any gel in your hair. The girls know all that. The women know this. That's what I did. All right, your turn.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, how do you get back in the game after something like that? If someone comes into your face and says your career's over, like, how do you rebound from that?
Your career's not over. Hollywood loves that kind of story.
Yeah.
Career's not over. My career was only beginning. Have any questions? Should we ask them?
Yeah, we could open it up to questions at all.
Do we have any questions at all? Anybody care about anything? Yes, we tell them more
what
stories.
Else?
Yeah, I think
defining moments.
I told my class this story anyway, but I'll tell it again, only because you can see him now. But I have a certain perversion about looking for weak spots in people. And if I find one, I'm like a dog on a bone. I don't let go. And it never occurred to me until Bob and I got in a car and drove from Brooklyn to Detroit, because in the interim is America, right? And I come from America, so I know what it's like out there. But I began to realize that Bob was not fond of bugs in any form, insects or snakes or whatever. And so by the time we get to Detroit, I know his weak spot. And
bugs.
We're in the living room one night, and a huge black beetle hits the screen. And Bob said, my God, what is that thing? And I say, it's a Japanese beetle. They've got 8 legs. The end of their legs are like fish hooks. And if they land on you, and you will pull the body off, but their little legs are dug into your arm. And then you have to surgically have them removed. And I can see the look on his face already, and I know I've got him. Does that make sense?
I believe him.
Right. So I tell everybody at work this story, and to mention that beetles are coming, and there's an infestation, whatever, and that they got little legs, and they land on you, and you pull them off. At the end of a month, I have him so paranoid that he is closing doors every night in the house. He's stuffing towels under the, right? Is this fair? It's okay.
That's not how
Well, I mean.
Please.
And one night, because Bob is in a room that was an interesting component. We end up 4 guys in this house. There were not enough rooms for everybody to have their own bedroom. You got your own bedroom. How did that happen? You said I can't sleep with anybody in the room?
Can't sleep with bugs. I don't know.
Okay. Bob's in his own room. I'm with another guy in another room. I say I'm going to screen bugs are here. You run out, get a big stick, and start to rake the screen on his bedroom window. All right? Bob came out of the room, white as a sheet, and he's a big guy. Do you understand? I looked at him and I thought, even a crack of a smile, I'm going to get killed here. I'm going to get killed.
Scared the shit out of me. I mean, you don't know what fear is until you are alone with yourself in dark Michigan with some schmuck outside raking the screen, and you thinking that bugs are going to take you by the arm and carry you off somewhere. Should I tell you the story about the Crips and the Bloods in Beat It?
Absolutely.
Do you know what do you want to hear the story of the Crips and the Bloods in Beat It? Sure. All right. Do you know what the Crips? Should I tell my story? Do you know who the Crips and the Bloods are? Okay. So somehow, Michael tells me he loves my scenario for Beat It, and we're going to go film it. But he wants to put the Crips and the Bloods in the movie. And I said, well, that's cool, but I know the Crips and the Bloods, and I know that it's not going to be too easy, even for Michael Jackson. I said, I'm not casting the Crips and the Bloods. You know, if you want to get them, Michael, I'll use them. I'm a director. I'll shoot them, but you have to get them. We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. And I'll be a son of a gun. Michael is able to get the Crips and the Bloods. Well, this is my first music video, which more or less is going to define my professional career. And I have nothing to say about it. That's going to be on my gravestone. That's what it's going to be. And when I die, they're going to say, you'll be around, you'll see, the guy that did Michael Beat It, okay. We go to downtown Los Angeles in the barrio, tough section in downtown LA, East LA. And we're in a warehouse, as you know, and we're going to shoot Beat It. And the first night, I'm going to shoot all the extraneous stuff, pool hall, running, chasing, whatever. And the Crips and the Bloods, if you see the video again, are in the pool hall. One gang, the white gang, the white cheerleader, the white gang leader, and the black gang leader had the other gang. He had the Bloods. This was the Crips. And filming, if you know anything about filming, is not so exciting after a while. After a while, it gets really boring. And the only people that are doing anything are the camera department. Everybody else is kind of picking their nose at the craft service table or doing something. And the Crips and the Bloods started to get bored. Now we're halfway into this first night. I am not going to dance. We're going to dance the second night. It's going to be all dance. First night, we're going to do all the periphery stuff to the story. But by this halftime, right after lunch, when you get tired, late, they start to get antsy. And all of a sudden, one of the Crips smacks around one of the Bloods. Police sergeant wasn't just a patrolman. The sergeant comes and said, Mr. Giraldi, I'm afraid that we're going to have to close this down now. I was afraid this is what I thought was going to happen. These people really don't like each other. It's not a game. They don't like each other, and they're bad people. And they started a fight, and one of the kids is banged up, and I can't take it. We cannot be responsible for trouble if anything happens. God forbid it happens to Michael Jackson. So Michael talked to him. He would not hear of anything, and we were going to close it down. And I said, officer, sergeant, wherever you are, I have an idea. What if I start to dance? What if we dance right now? Turn the music up. Do you know how you shoot dance? You take playback of the track and you turn it up loud and everybody dances to it and makes believe they lip sync. And he said, we had him. Okay, I said, let me just try one take. I give you my word as a professional that if it doesn't work, we'll be out of here. We'll wrap and we'll get out of here. The Crips and the Bloods are kind of restless. dancers are not ready, they're not warmed up, they haven't done any calisthenics, they're not going to dance. I go to Michael Peters, the choreographer, who also was the kid in Ehrman, the black kid. You know, the black kid in Ehrman, the gang leader, was Michael Peters, who created that dance and choreographed that video. And his lover at the time was the kid, the white kid, and the opposing gang leader. They were living together. That's a little bit of a little so they weren't too bad, and they liked each other. So I say to the sound man, turn it up now, loud, loud. Bring it as much as you can. We're downtown LA, didn't matter. They start to play the music, and if you're ever outside and you're out, you get that, it's magic. It's party time. And I said, Michael, get them ready. Everybody's running around crazy to get ready. The Crips and the Bloods, come on. They all come on. Everybody's coming now. I go on to the stage. I go on the stage. I go on the ledge of the whatever it was, the factory or warehouse, and I see a forklift, and that's just the way that happened. I just see a forklift, and I said, who could drive a forklift? And somebody said, I can. I said, okay, you're driving that forklift. I said, Michael Peters was my man, with my brother. I said, Michael, you get on that. Hold on tight, don't get hurt. You get on that, we'll drive up. Your gang comes this way. The doors go up. Vince's gang comes this way. And Michael Jackson is somewhere up there with boxes. He's going to come down, and he's going to separate them later as the story and dance goes. I said, okay. Music is going. The cops are coming around. Everybody now, you can tell in a movie set when people are interested because everybody's coming around. They're starting to crowd. And I knew I had something beginning there. Let's go. Playback, boom. First take, pretty hot. I mean, really pretty hot. I look at my guys look at me, and you all know it as artists. You know when you have something. And I will tell you the truth. We knew by the first take that there was something happening. Something here was going to hold on, was going to be something to talk about years from now. We knew that. Second take, the dancers are just getting warmed up. The third take, I see the Crips and the Bloods, whose only job it was to look bad, because all they could do was be bad, move to the front and watch the dancing going on right there and look bad. I saw them come to the front and do that. And I told the camera, I went over to the cameraman, it was Danny Quinn, he's no longer alive, God bless him. I said, Danny, get those kids, look at those faces. The Crips and the Bloods were sitting there. watching, what, 24, if I remember right, 24 dancers, mostly black, some Latino, some Asian, but mostly black, mostly gay, do something that those guys could never do in their whole lives. These are the baddest guys in Los Angeles watching those kids dance. It was unbelievable to watch them do the bam, bing, bam, boom, 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 bam. And by the fifth take, I was so cocky and so hot. I went to, and this is what's in this video now, I went to my AD and I took out of my pocket a switchblade that I had myself, I had bought, and I said, because there were rubber knives. You can't dance with rubber knives. Okay, God, I gave him the switchblade and I said, here, go replace that. Give Michael this one and give Vince this one. He said, you can't do that. It's illegal. I said, Dick, shut the fuck up. Go do it. Just go do it. Right? He gives them, and if you ever see the video, it's one time, they go, and they realize that in their hands they have the real deal. Right? And then you see their wrists are tied, and you can see them just not wanting to go anywhere near that because they would rip their eyes out with that, with those dances. And it just all magically came together. And it was about the Crips and the Bloods giving it up that night, saying, that's cool. What we do, but that's cool. That's what I remember most about Beat It. Not Michael's dance, although Michael's dance. And it goes down in history as being the only time Michael never choreographed what he danced. That was choreographed by Michael Peters, the gang leader, and Michael danced that dance. And it's stunning as you couldn't get.
But when you talk about the magic of that first take, you know, that you knew you had something there where you're like, that could be done. When you were like, yeah, that shot, that's done. How do you feel, like, how can you tell when your work there is done? Not just both of you, when your piece of art, when you're done working on something, how do you know when you're done?
My guess was that Bob could feel it with the other people around as well. So it wasn't just him who sensed it. I mean, there's a collective whatever. I mean, part of the problem working alone, which not a problem, I want to work alone, is that when that happens, one of those moments happen with something in front of me, a picture, right? There's nobody around, right? So I have a little statue of Buddha in my studio, and I turn to Buddha and I say, did you see what just happened here? And Buddha, of course, does nothing but sit there. So he's become but to answer your question, those moments happen if you're alone, but it's much better if there's somebody around to validate it, even an animal, dog, cat, something.
Absolutely.
Directors play to audiences. Directors play to a crew. Don't forget, I'm around 80 people. Crews, that's 80-some people that you're playing to. So, people don't realize it, but we perform as well. We're performers as well, so,
Another thing I was curious about is the transition, if there was one really, from doing your work to knowing you wanted to teach. At what moment did you realize you wanted to start teaching what you knew to other people?
I'd like to think that's what I did. That's not what I did. In 1965, I showed up here. They needed a drawing teacher to start 2 days later because somebody got sick. We're back to timing again. I happened to wander in at a moment when they were desperate. They said, can you start Monday? Right? It was not a desire to teach. That came later. When I suddenly realized that I was actually getting back more than I was giving in. So, but we were 1968. Bob and I were. It was a time of revolution, Colombia. Vietnam protest, and the school was right in the middle of it. And there were groups going out with posters, and it was chaos. And Silas Rhodes, who founded the school, made Bob his. Did you have a title?
Yeah, it was one of the 4 or 5 worst mistakes of my life. I've made a few. And this one was a big one. Silas liked me. I was young, your age, and I was Hasi Tatsi, art director up Madison Avenue, and we knew each other, and he was teaching, and he got me down to teach, and I was fairly good at teaching, as Marshall's genius at teaching. He realized that there's a whole bunch of young people out there that could help him, and then all of a sudden, Vietnam came and exploded on the New York scene. And when I say exploded, it was every single day there was protests, and especially in an art school where all of the artists think they're, somebody, and they're going to protest. And his judgment wasn't good. Although I don't think he really thought when he was doing this that it was really going to be as much about protest in Vietnam. He asked me to become the assistant director of the school. I'm a pisher. I'm a little pisher. I'm, selling soap in Madison Avenue, and I'm going to become the assistant director of the School of Visual Arts. A job they don't have today. I took it because I loved Silas, and we tried. And I'll never forget talking. We had a lot of people talking to the student body, talking to the instructors, and they were screaming and yelling, "Who the hell are you? When war's going on, young men are dying, and you're selling underarm deodorant, to people in Madison Avenue." In many respects, they were all right. They were correct. I was helping sell while America was being slaughtered. And so I got fired. Not too long after, Silas realized, you know what, Bob, we made a mistake. I said, we sure did, Silas. And then I left the school and was gone for a long time while Marshall stayed and created his legacy in the department you all belong to now. And it wasn't until Silas, the last couple of years of his life, said, Bob, I'd love you to come back here, and not to the film department, I'd love you to come back here and teach what you do well, filmmaking to advertising people and graphic design people. They need that form of communication. The film department's got it covered. We need it, and so I did, and the rest is my current history.
Yeah.
Timing, my man. It's about timing.
So it comes back to just luck. It's luck and timing.
Called dumb luck.
It just happens.
Well, I think opportunities happen, then, and then other things happen. I mean, we've talked about this. The main thing I remember about Pratt was it taught me how to work. It taught me discipline. It's a funny thing to say about school, but I remember that more than anything. I walked out of Pratt with a muscle to function. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I think we all did. I mean, and that served me well. That has nothing to do with talent. That has to do with functioning.
So what advice would you have for students who might not know already what they want to do, or might, still be in school or deciding what they want to do?
My advice for young people in the film business is entirely different than the advice that Marshall would give to these fine people out there who he teaches. My advice is completely different because I know what to do if you're a young person trying to get work and a career in the film business. It's completely different. I have no idea what they do. You can tell what they do.
Yeah, my advice is that if you can find something in yourself and you like to be alone, this is important, be alone. I mean, and you can communicate it. We're not that far apart, I mean, in terms
We're not at all.
The vehicle. I mean, he's trying to do this in film, I'm trying to do it in pictures. I mean, I don't think the goals are different, do you?
No, they're not. And what I would do with young people, and maybe you're young people who would listen to this, is in the world of film, this guy over here is from the film department. He's from the film department. You get your ass and you go somewhere where you can get a job on a set, because that's where the film process begins. And we in the film industry are not racist or sexist in any way, shape, or form. All we care about is the bottom line. We only care about what makes a profit, what makes a great movie, what makes something that can sell. And I tell all the young people, if you really want to work in film, get up and go to LA and get a job on any one of the 50 sets that shoot every single day. Make a relationship. So 2 people become friends, and then 4 people become friends, and then when he works again, he calls you 3 as PAs, and you start as a PA, and within 3 months you can graduate to another level, and then you'll seek your own talent. That's how filmmakers are made. I don't know about artists, but I know that's about filmmakers.
How do you balance creativity and profit, and trying to make a profit? And at what point of your life did you figure that out?
I figured it out quite a while ago, and I've said, and people laugh because I've found a way to say it in a silly way, but if you do quality, you'll do quantity, but it never works the other way around. If you're good, you will make money somehow. If you're good and don't want money because you're coming from some strange place that money is the evil, money is not evil. You can't live in New York without money. You can't. It's just impossible. You can't go buy a nice scarf without money. So there's no reason why you shouldn't make money. That whole argument, it just gets so discombobulated that if I'm an artist, I don't have to get money. No, if you're a great artist, name me a great artist that hasn't been paid well. Tell me. You make money. Don't let him. He makes lots of money. He's got more money than I have. The money and art do not have to be enemies. Please, they do. This is 2014. They don't have to be enemies. They're not enemies. Money is something you get for your work so you can survive. Your art is something you do because that's who you are and what the place where you are. Really, don't let it.
So both of your industries have really changed over the course of your careers. What is one of the most striking things that you see, or differences in what, we're going into compared to what you went into?
I don't remember. It was interesting. People would get jobs as art directors without art director portfolios. I mean, we had graphic design menus and whatever. I mean,
album covers.
Yeah, album covers and whatever. And no one said, in order to get this job, you have to have an advertising portfolio. I mean, I think on one hand, that situation is much worse. On the other hand, there's a lot more freedom. There's no money there yet. But in terms of the internet, self-publishing, it is possible to control your medium. I mean, he controls his medium because he's a director. We have to control the medium because we can publish our own book. I mean, he makes a lot of money. No, aside from his film, I mean, Bob has owned how many restaurants?
Oh, I've owned many, 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 many. I'm also in the restaurant business, and nobody knows anything about that. But I'm partners with probably, again, timing and luck. I'm partners with probably the finest and the smartest and the most talented chef in the world. Anybody ever hear of anybody called Jean-Georges? Jean-Georges van Gerichten? Well, we're partners, and I make money from Jean-Georges. I make money with restaurants downtown, Italian restaurants. I just like, my mother was good at it, and I like it, and it's my little hobby. We make money. But that's not really money. Now, where the money for me is? Commercials. It's a lot of money in making commercials. Those clients, I shot, you'll see a campaign that'll come out soon. You can say, oh, Bob did that. For McDonald's and Xbox are coming together for a promotion at McDonald's. You walk into McDonald's, if you pull it off and you win, you get a free Xbox. So they're going to do that for about 3 weeks. So I made the commercials for them. So you go into McDonald's in LA and you shoot and start the commercial with a guy biting. One bite. Peel off. I won, all right? And then something happens. Okay, let's take two. Do you have to throw that away? Can we just like turn it a little bit and take another bite? No! No! Take the thing. I said, what do you do with that fucking hamburger? What do you do with it? Oh, we have to throw it away. The law says we can't. They went through 80 hamburgers, one bite each. I said, you could feed a village. I said, I can take that shit home. I'll send it right now on a plane. And I know people in New York that'll eat that cold and reheat it. No, burp. So there's more money in the business of advertising, which is corporate, which you don't know probably much about. And if you don't, that's good, than any place. So you can use your art and you can make money if that's what you want. But you don't have to.
But I think also your restaurants are run the same way your film is. No, I mean, you turn out a quality product, right, with the help of some amazing chefs. But when we were in school, Bob's mother saved my life. I mean, she fed me for 4 years. And the rules at her table were very simple. Every Sunday we go to Bob's house, and the Silver Fox was there. You remember the Silver Fox?
My uncle was a gangster. It's so beautiful here.
And Bob's whole family was there. Right, and I grew up in a Swedish family where nobody talks, okay, and people certainly don't hug. You know what I mean? And when people eat, no one really sat down together. My mother's idea of food was pot roast because it could cook forever and you could eat anytime. Okay, so anytime you came home, you opened the dish and you ate. But anyway, we're in Bob's house in Patterson, and Bob's mother, who was truly amazing. Oh, looks like Ana Mañana. I loved your mother. It was great. And she said to me the first time I went, there are table rules here. Okay, I said, I'm listening. Okay. She said, first we sit down. Okay. Then we eat. And then we talk. And then we hug each other. And it was, I mean, I began to appreciate food because for the first time in my life, I was not eating and talking. It was like the food was in front of me, and we ate, and then we talked. Right?
It's one of the only courses here, I think, or grad situations here, I think that's lacking. And I haven't talked to David about it, but somebody would be smart enough to get a culinary course here because it's full of artistry as much as any. If you know anything about chefs, you go look at Marcus Samuelsson, you go look at Jean-Georges van Gerichten, you go look at Andrew Carmelini, you go look at Michael White, and you will see paintings and artistry that is just spectacular. And it takes its place along with the most creative of all arts. So it would be smart for us. And I'm sure David knows this, and I'm sure it's on the horizon somewhere. It just has a little difficult because it has to do with a kitchen, and that's always money, you know, and that kind of investment. Anything else? Anybody have any other questions?
We got a question.
I'm sorry.
We got two.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask if there's any piece of advertising recently that you found kind of inspiring.
Good question.
It's a very good question. I saw, you know what, I watch football. Sunday I like to just deflate. And I watched, and Saturday, the college thing was great. And in the winter, I usually try and catch a game, and there's where I watch most of my television. I don't watch episodic television. I couldn't tell you a thing about The Sopranos and, you know, or all of the, I just watch news, 60 Minutes every single Sunday. So whatever advertising is on there or whatever commercials are on sports, I will probably watch. And there are some really very nice stuff. You know, I mean, I must say that Xbox, while it's a little too violent for me and for a generation that I think it's not helping, does some really, really extraordinary stuff. I mean, the thing before when Marshall was talking about what's the difference, you asked what the difference is between, you know what the difference really is right now? The internet. The internet is the difference. You know, don't forget, you didn't come up, you weren't raised where it wasn't, and then it was. You were raised where it was right from the beginning. We were raised where there was no internet. Then we had to learn it, and then we had to apply it. Well, you've got to apply it. You've got to know the art you do has got to talk to people. And you just must understand that in some way, shape, or form. And that would be a course that we should all, I think that's a course that every department should put in, how their particular art applies to short content, which is what, I mean, we're talking about 6-second content. We're talking about 1-minute content. I mean, you can't be any faster. Zoom, zoom, in the eyes, in the glass. I mean, it's just, it's pathetic and ridiculous, but it is what it is. It's you. It's, you know, it's a different generation. And the more you understand that generation, the more that art that you're doing is going to be able to be, you know, structured in the right way. Trust me. You got to trust me on that. If I know anything, I know that that's, because I'm one of the few people that ever made money on the internet, on .com. Remember .com when it was .com, when it was, you didn't know what .com is? When it first started, everybody was going around trying to come up with ideas for, you know, the entrepreneurship. Well, and my wife created a site called starchefs.com. You can go on and you look at it sometime, and it's the definitive website for cookbook authors and chefs. They go on that site to see what's going on, what's hot, what's not, who's doing what restaurants are open, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Starchefs.com. And we did it way back and sold it and made a couple $1 million on it. And just because because money is a good thing. It's a good thing.
That's money is a good thing.
You're damn right it's a good thing. It's just when it corrupts, but doesn't sex corrupt, doesn't bad judgment corrupt, doesn't cheating corrupt, don't we have a lot of things that corrupt? Why does money always take the hit? Do I love Wall Street? No, blow it up, throw it away, get rid of it, start all over again. But it's not really, you don't have to worry about that kind of money.
We had another question over there.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, because you guys said that when you were in high school and college, you guys hated the competition in the classroom. Then you guys went on to do you have big careers, and you have people such as Michael Jackson. Your videos where the money revenue is high, and competition is even more fierce. So I just wanted to know, how did you guys adapt from the classroom environment, where you guys didn't like the competition, to end up having to face it and make that part of your career?
Well, Marshall can talk to that first. I happen to think that Marshall is in the single worst, most competitive business in the whole world, which means you were probably going. I think the fine arts world.
He's talking about the fine art world.
The fine arts world is as cutthroat as anything in the United States of America, so you can answer that one first.
I forgot the question. Okay, competition.
How do you adjust to the competition?
I never thought I was in it. Does that make sense? I got into, let's talk about illustration. I mean, I got into illustration backwards. I was doing one illustration a month, never more, never booked up. All my friends were booked up for 6 months. They had big scheduled things on the wall. And I remember why this is important, I don't know, but I was at a urinal, right? And Wilson McLean was standing next to me, who was an extremely successful illustrator, booked up for years and whatever. And he turned to me and he said, you know, you're hot. All right? And I said, what? He said, you're hot, man. He said, everywhere I look, right, I see your work. And I said, Wilson, I said, I do one job a month. You do 20. All right? But the work I do is in publications. The work you're doing is corporate. You're doing all kinds of corporate stuff that I'll never see. All right? So when you thumb a magazine, my work comes up, yours doesn't, because you don't work for less than $10,000 in illustration. And I'll work for $50. I said, so to answer your question, I don't remember feeling competitive. I remember feeling, I got to work this out for me, and that I can't compete with people who, I mean, I'm not stupid. I can look at somebody, Wilson McLean, who's an incredible technician, and say, I can't do that. So I better find out what I can do. And that was the game. It wasn't competitive. Does that make sense? I mean, in my case, it was, if there was competition, it wasn't competition. It was people saying things to me like, your work looks like Francis Bacon. Right? And I said, well, Francis Bacon was a major influence on me. That influence, I think, is in me, and if I have anything, it'll come out. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm not Francis Bacon, meaning I live his life, right? And so whatever I am will eventually come out. And at the moment, the influence, the alternative to not having an influence is to not look at anything. So, but that's not competition. That's just when people want to, they don't mean to be mean, but it's people's comments that are ultimately mean. Does that make sense? The comment of, what are you doing? What are you working on? Is mean. Does that make sense? And I usually say it to people who I know are not working, because I'm mean. You understand? It's like, hey, Harry, how you doing? What are you working on? Oh.
What are you up to? What are you up to lately? What you doing?
I mean, the irony of visual arts is, after all these years, I still have people coming up to me in the street that were in my class in like 1970. They've had very happy lives. They've got kids, they've got houses, they're really happy. When they left art school, they went to work for their uncle, who sells bricks or something. They've been perfectly happy doing that for 30 years, 20 years. They see me, I'm a connection to the art school, and they start apologizing 5 feet before they get to me. You know, I'm going to do, you know, I've been thinking about art. I haven't done much lately. I mean, it's this weird addiction that we all have. And unfortunately, you know, the world doesn't need more artists. I mean, I need to do this to be sane. I mean, it's not that the world needs me or the art I make. I mean, I need to do this. But it's a guilt thing that goes the rest of people's lives if they don't do it. It's interesting. I think that probably only occurs, however, when they see somebody from school. I mean, I don't think people wake up with this. I mean, but I think, you know, school's a reminder of something. I mean,
for me, I never got used to it, and the difference for me now is at my age, I finally, and that's I guess what maturity is about. I finally reckoned with the fact that I am not the best at what I do, but I'm pretty good at everything that I worry about competing in. I spent my entire life from your age on going to bed every night worried about the competition the next day. Who I was better than, who was better than me. Don't forget, my job, I have to compete with at least 3 to 5 directors every time. When you do a commercial, you make a bid, and you bid against a lot of other directors. So I'm always competing against somebody. I grew up competing against people. I went into the restaurant business where the hottest chefs in New York City, I chose New York City. I'm always competing against somebody. It wasn't until I realized that, you know what? It doesn't matter if I lose. I can hold my head up, not hate the guy or woman, and deal with it. You got to learn how to deal with competition. It can really eat you away. It's bad shit. And I spent my whole life competing, and I'm really good at competing. And I don't mind if I lose now. In fact, my people at the studio, my wife, they look at me and say, you don't really care you lost? No, I don't care. I shot that already. I don't care. I did it. Right? Right now, I want to live my life, enjoy my life, and that's. But you got to get to a certain age for that.
But with competing, isn't that just trying to be the best, or is there like an addictive side to that?
Is there a positive part of competing? Probably, obviously. And if you could find that positive part, then you've nailed it.
No, I mean, I only see like the positive. When I think of competing, I just think of trying to be the best. I wouldn't know how to do the other part of competing. I'm just wondering if you know.
Is there sour grapes if you lose?
Well, yeah, that always.
You know, is there bad judgment if you lose? I was good at finding a way in to, I'm smart enough to know if I'm going to make a bid for that commercial campaign, my representative Suarez might take somebody out to dinner because and then you say to yourself, wait a minute, I'm getting that job because there's a relationship happening over here, when all of Hollywood is about relationships. It's all about relationships. Those people that win awards at the Hollywood Globes and the Academy Awards, it's all about relationships. It's about talent, but all about relationships. I never got to the point that it was just easy for me. It was hard for me, and I did it well. And why? You would say that I compete well, right. And that comes from maybe playing ball and knowing how to whatever. But I always hated it, and only today can I look at it and say, "Good, cool, you got that job? I love it. It's great. Good for him. Hope he does a nice job." And mean it. You could say it, but not mean it. You got to mean it, or else it'll eat at you. That's the wrong way to make art.
Well, it was funny. Early on, this won't mean anything. There was a film director named Andy Jenkins, and he was very successful. And I said to him one day, I said, my friend Bob is starting to direct. And he said, really, Bob Giraldi? He'll last a year. Right?
I got that a couple times.
I think I told Bob that to piss him off. Right?
And then Andy went up and died. I can't even smack him around now. Okay, any other questions? And we could, you're a great audience, and I wish there was more people interested in film here, but that's okay. Yeah.
I actually have a question. I'm a film student about producing. How, right now there's this thing called Kickstarter for filmmakers.
Yes.
Where you ask your family and friends.
Yes.
My friends have tried that, and for a few of them it's been pretty unsuccessful. How did you, I don't know if it has to do with timing, what about maybe producing your first?
I've always gotten money, or I've always used my own. I do a short film pretty much every year, and I love financing it myself. Love it. My wife says, why don't we need to get people to get, I don't need to get people to give me the money. I've got the money, and I'm going to take it, because what did I work all that long and hard for? So I'm in a different place than you probably are, obviously. I can take the money, and I can go do it. I just finished a short film that took 3 days and a lot of money to make. But I did it professionally with a good actor and a good crew, and I'm happy with it. And that's my art. I enjoy that part of it. I don't do everything like that. Next week I'll work and get paid handsomely for something, but that's something I did. Now, your question. Forget Kickstarter. Throw it away. It sucks. For you should be looking at Indiegogo or any of the others that you all know about. that's where you should be looking. Because you can go on, and I can look in your eyes right now and see that you're a sincere person, that you're not coming from a phony place. If I were you, because I talk to my film students about this all the time, because everyone in my film class are trying to get money. They're trying to raise money to make their film. They need anywhere between $8,000 and $12,000. How do you get $8,000 and $12,000 to do their film? Go on Indiegogo, film you, sit there, tell them who you are, why you're here, what your movie is about, and I need your help. And if you can see your way to help me, please send the money in. And I guarantee you'll get the money. I guarantee you. If you ask for $70,000, you won't get it. If you ask for anywhere like $4, $5, $7, $9, $10,000, you'll get it if you have a project, and it's a sincere project, and you're sincere. If you go on and you're cool, too cool for school, you're not going to get shit. You're not going to get anything. But if you go on and you're sincere, that's the place to go. You know about Indiegogo. You can tell her, and there are others, right? There's a few others. There's 2 others that are, because if you ask for $10,000 on Indiegogo and you get 4, you give them a little vig and you keep the rest of the money. On Kickstarter, if you don't get the money, you don't get anything. You don't get anything. You don't raise that. Forget that. That's a bad formula. It's a great formula to start it. It was the one that started fundraising, but now young people are raising their funds other ways. And if you have a good project, they will listen because people want to help people, and especially if you give them something. Be in the movie. What's it a movie about? Is it a movie about gender, about race, about gay? Give me something that I can, and I guarantee you'll get it.
What if there's something like that for kids' books?
Yes, I got one the other day from an actor who said, I'm now doing a kid's book with somebody, and here's the art, and here's the kid thing, whatever, and we need some money to finish it.
But is there a website for people who want to produce children's books to go and kind of pitch it like that?
I don't think specifically.
Oh, okay, I thought it was just for films. Okay.
But fundraising is not a detriment today for young people. Absolutely not. We know about problems of getting money when we were raised. You shouldn't have you should be able to get money. Enough to get started.
Well, unless we have any other questions, I think that's a great note to go out on. And I want to thank you guys for your time.
No, but thank
and
you.
for your insight.